Always.
Okay. And we're live. Yay! Hello, friends, family, community. Amber here with an amazing guest who I am about to introduce you to. But before we dive in, just welcoming you, reminding you that you can ask questions, even on the replay. Feel free to tag myself or Robin. We'll do our best to reply. And Robin is here joining me for this exciting feature as Robin will be joining us in Madison for the Unleashed experience. Some of you are coming to the event, but even if you're not coming to the event, I wanted to have the chance for you to meet Robin and gain from her wisdom, and especially around learning about how you can engage oracle cards for yourself and your journey, but also some other really cool things like just some really cool ways that Robin has trusted her intuition and authenticity in some bold, inspiring ways. So if you are looking maybe in your own journey for how to really trust your intuition and your authenticity, even if it feels like scary or you're unsure, I think you'll get some nuggets of wisdom from Robin. So, Robin, welcome.
Hi, Amber. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. All right. So you are an authenticity and intuitive guide. And can you share a little about your background and how you help people?
Yes. So I stepped into this space in about 4 years ago, and I started recognizing like we're all intuitive in our own ways. And I think oftentimes we can look to we hear like psychics or astrologers, or we think that it has to be some big thing where you're like, not reading people's minds, but people get that sense of like when they hear the word intuitive. And really, I learned in my journey that I started just noticing synchronicities and seeing connections and patterns come together. And I would think like have a hit for something, and then it would show up. And so just started like really tuning into that and tapping into that. And as I started exploring that and what that is and how I can really use that to support others, I started like getting into oracle cards and recognizing how those are a beautiful tool for really getting to know yourself on a deeper level. And that's what I do. I create safe and inspiring spaces for others to be seen and heard so that they can be received with love, because I believe at the end of the day that's at our core what we all want. We want to be seen, we want to be known.
Yeah, and so much becomes possible for us through those containers of being received with love and support for sure. So, something similar that we have in common also is like our backgrounds for strategy and marketing. And so, I think that anyone watching who maybe is similar, where some of us who have that corporate professional background or we use our mind a lot, at least I really experienced this like profound kind of shift as I learned how to really trust my intuition and energy. So I'm just curious to maybe speak into that a little bit. Um, how you started to recognize your gifts with engaging energy and intuition, because like you, I believe that we all have it, but some of us are just not yet allowing ourselves to trust it. So I'm just curious kind of how those nudges started, even when you were in corporate. Like, we're going to talk about your big transformation point you had, but how did that start showing up? Like,
Yeah. It's I think a lot of times it shows up in discomfort. It's when
yes.
we're kind of at an edge and a turning point, and I like to think of it as contrast. It's like we start noticing the things that are different than how we may wish that they were being, or certain, like I don't know, we're just starting to feel that. And so I was in that space of really kind of feeling like this discontent. It's like I loved my team, I loved my company, but I knew that there was
Mhm.
something else out there. And that's when I started kind of leaning into this realm a little more. And I think oftentimes like in the business world, it can feel like a little faux pas, or just not like, oh, that's weird. Like we hear that, I don't like using the term woo woo, but that's what a lot of people peg this as, and it kind of diminishes it. And so I think that when when others are really like starting to sense and feel that, oh, there is contrast here, and there is something, like I'm feeling like something's in my body telling me like, oh, I need to shift directions with maybe even with a project you're working on, that it can be a little scary to speak about and talk about. And I think over the past 2 years, I've seen more and more businesses and business owners like really start to kind of claim that and unfold,
Yes.
because the pandemic opened up a lot for us in that way. And I think that like I just started exploring it more, and through like just meditation retreats and yoga and listening, like in meditation, like sitting quiet and receiving messages and actually listening, because before it was like I was so consumed with everything that was going on that I wouldn't really listen, because the
Yes.
messages were always there.
And I totally agree about that whole, like, some people think it's too woo woo. And I resisted for years, even though underlying so much of what I was doing with working with people was rooted in spiritual principles. And I was being spiritual, and I was engaging my energy, and I was helping to walk people in their path to align. When we talk about aligning with authenticity, so much of that is energy, spirituality related. So anyone who's watching, whether you're all like super comfortable and you get this, or if you're on the other end, or maybe there's discomfort and you're like, oh, I have things that aren't sitting right in my life. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's too woo woo. Wherever you are, the discomfort's there for a reason. And looking at it, like, and even anyone showing up and watching this, you're here for a reason. So don't run. That's amazing. Don't run. So let's talk a little about, one of the things I love is that we were talking earlier, and you said, true authenticity is showing up no matter what's going on. And we were talking about kind of funky energy the last few weeks, and how you've been showing up anyway. And because, like, we need it because of that. So how have you come to be able to do that? Because I think a lot of people, and I know I've struggled with this at points in my journey, I was like, well, why would I want to show up if I'm not my super best self? So what does that really mean when we're really committed to authenticity and showing up no matter what's going on? Like, how do you even do that? This last couple of weeks, you've been doing more live streams, showing up for your community. What do you think, like, as a takeaway for someone, where if they're feeling really off, how can they even still show up?
Yes, that's a great question. And I would say it took me, I don't know, it took a lot over the years of just leaning more into vulnerability and recognizing that, because I would see different people post and share, like, honestly, where they are in their journey and what they're experiencing. And I would always relate to that. Like, oh, wow, this person sees me. Like, I feel seen. And so I've over the years, I feel like I've grown into that more. And every time it doesn't, like, it gets easier, but it's still like, oh, should I really? I don't know. Maybe I should just be in this space. And I think sometimes when we're talking about energy, you can feel like you're alone and that you're the only one experiencing it. Because I was like, oh, this is great. Life is feeling good. And then all of a sudden one day, boom, extreme fatigue. I was having to like nap more. And not that that's a bad thing, but you can still, I think, even it doesn't matter how long you've been in corporate or out of corporate. I think there's still this, even as entrepreneurs, there's still this deeply ingrained societal kind of shame around needing to take rest. And so I was just like really feeling. And so out of curiosity, I do a Wisdom Wednesday every week with my community. And I just got on and was like, hey, is anybody feeling the energy? Are you noticing any shifts? And I've been blown away. So many people have just been reaching out and
Someone said they love this question. They must be feeling it. And I asked if others have noticed this the last few weeks. So I think what you're speaking into is recognizing, no, you're not crazy. You're not alone. And if you don't have a community who can understand this yet, this is why I'm utilizing these spaces. A lot of people know me for business coaching, and in order for us to create anything externally in our business, it comes from within us internally, the visionary leader behind the brand. We have got to be taken care of, and energy's real. So people are saying they're totally feeling it. Okay, so that first step I'm hearing is like recognizing that it is real and it's okay, honoring yourself and what you need. Okay, so what else, like what was some of the wisdom you've been sharing with your community about, like, then what else do you say? How do we move through those times when we feel really off?
Yeah, I think it really is honoring where you are and
Mm.
being okay with letting others down sometimes, which can be scary. You may have
Ooh, that's
things
powerful.
like scheduled. And I even had one of my friends, we had a call scheduled on Tuesday, and she reached out and she said, I'm still feeling like really tired. Can
Mm.
we move our call? And I said, absolutely. And I said, I feel you. I was like, the energy is really intense right now. And I think that's a big part of it, is like learning to honor that
Mm.
aspect and know that people will, like, for the most part, I believe people will understand. And I even shifted. I'm launching a new course and I was planning on kicking it off this week. And I just knew energetically it wasn't there. And so I shifted it.
Mhm.
And I think that's the beauty when we are business owners, is we do have that authority in a way that we can do that. And then just be open with people and share, like, hey, you don't have to share every detail of like
Mhm.
what's going on, but you can just be open and own it and say, like, hey, there's just been a lot moving energetically. And when I shared that, even the people who were already enrolled in my course were like, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm feeling it too.
Yeah.
Like,
So I think there's a lot of language that's always like, well, don't be controlled by your emotions. So
right.
how do we kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of toggle the, yes, let's not be controlled or consumed by our emotions, and also how do we uh honor our energy? And it wasn't like we prepped this with this question or anything. It's just
Yeah.
organic. I'm like, but that feels juicy. I'm just curious if you have any like thoughts or wisdom on that. Um,
Yeah. I feel like there's something when we're being consistent and when we have consistent practices and we're committed to
mhm,
something. And when you make a commitment, and that's where I feel like integrity comes into play. And so it's like showing up for the
so
things that
good.
we've said yes to, and also honoring it, like honoring your word to yourself. And sometimes recognizing that that may shift a little, and it's okay. Like, you can still, so I'm committed every week to show up live on Wednesdays for my community. Last week I did not show up on Wednesday. I showed up on Friday. And but I still was like, I'm still going to show up this week because I want to be there and I want to share. And I also find that when we're dealing with, like, it is like there's a depth within us, and sometimes it's unexplainable and we don't really know. And the way to shift that is to show up.
Okay, so so I don't want to scoop past this, because someone watching might think, okay, well, that seems like it's in conflict to say don't be afraid to let others down, but also commitment and
Right.
integrity. But here's what I see in that is that if you have a commitment to say, so like for me, I have a commitment to authenticity and truth, and I have a commitment to consistency, but also potency. So that means you can count on me to always be consistently honest and know where I'm at, which means I do my best to manage my schedule. And now I know my energy rhythms to where, like, I have only certain days and times. And even through the month, there's times where clients can book calls with me. I've learned how to honor that. But that does, so then I do my best to show up for that. But if I know that I'm off, I will be transparent with a client and let them know, like, hey, I'm, at 80% today. And you know what? I can still show up depending where you're at, but I want you to like have that choice to know where my full capacity is at. And I think that's the integrity piece you're speaking about,
Mhm.
and the authenticity piece. So
Yes.
I think this is pretty nuanced, but it's important. And what I hope people hear is, yes, we want to hold true to our commitments and show up when we say we will. And also, energetically, like if you know who you are and you get to trust and build your authentic power, you can also have that commitment to honoring your energy, so that there's a way in which you can be honest. Because what you've done, Robin, is you've built that consistency and trust with your community because you have shown up so consistent, but then your energy was off. And hello, you're showing up in a world where you're teaching people about energy and authenticity. So you were transparent about it. And I'm guessing then you talked about it. You didn't just
Yeah.
ignore it.
Right.
Did you say, hey, here's why I'm showing up a few days late? Let me just own that.
Yeah.
So I hope if anyone watching has a question about this, please ask, because I think this is where people get really freaking stressed out and hard on themselves. Oh, I didn't freaking do it, or I'm avoiding coming to my group coaching call now because I don't want to say I didn't do it. No, like those are reasons you should go to your community, not because you're going to be chastised, but to help you build your confidence in becoming unleashed, which means knowing yourself enough to know when, like, to trusting that it's okay, that like commitment and consistency doesn't mean it's done the same exact time, the same exact way every single time, all the time, because then that's aiming for perfection and that's not realistic.
Right.
So, yeah. Ooh, and I think we each get to choose ultimately. We choose what we're ultimately committed to.
Right. And our commitments can change. And I think that's where integrity comes in, is also like honoring, looking at your commitments and asking from time to time, checking in, is this still aligned?
Yes. That's such a good piece of wisdom. Okay. So there's a good question that you know what? We're going to answer it now. Well, no, we're going to move to this question because I think what you just hit on is really important. I'm not going to forget the question, which is checking in on commitments. Is it really aligned? So you had a point, I think, was it about a few years back, where you were in a thriving corporate career and you had a transformation point where you went on a nomadic journey and you lived abroad, I believe, for a few years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. Like, so I call that a pretty big shift. How did you start to recognize, okay, my commitments are changing, and help people understand what that felt like before you made the switch and then as you were doing it? So anyone else here, we talked about little tweaks and little shifts, which are important. And sometimes there's like a big transformation coming. So I want people to maybe hear so they can check with themselves if maybe they're on a similar path.
Yeah. So that was, I would say around 2015, I started like noticing, I was going through my own work and depth and depression, and I hadn't really experienced, it's like I knew there was something changing in my life and I didn't really know what or how to be with it. And I started just leaning into support, going to therapy, and then I started stepping into some transformational programs. And then in 2017, I went on my first meditation retreat. And I had done a mini one the year prior, but this was like my first time going on like a week-long international. And I had no idea what to expect. It was just like I got this hit and was like, yes, I'm going. And on the very first day of that retreat, we were in a meditation and I got a clear message that said, you were playing it safe. And to the outside world, it looked like, oh no, this girl's going on adventures, because I worked to travel. That was my mentality. I would save up my vacation, save up my money, and then go on a big trip somewhere every year with a couple of my girlfriends from college. And so it was like I was doing it, I was traveling, but there were other things in my life that I was loyal to a fault sometimes, where I didn't want to let others down. So I would keep pushing my dreams aside. And my deep down dream was I wanted to travel, like not just for vacation. I wanted to travel full time and explore the world and see what else was out there. And so I got that nudge that I was playing it safe, and it's like they say freedom follows truth. And I like Gloria Steinem says, like, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And
who resonates with that? Yes.
and so I felt it. It's like I was like mad. And I just remember in that moment, I was just like breaking down and started crying, and was just feeling it, because I was like feeling like I'd wasted my life in many ways. Like, what am I doing? And even though I hadn't, it was all part of my journey. But in the moment, that's what it felt. And so I had to sit with that for a little bit. And I knew it was like, I knew stepping into what I wanted, part of it didn't seem possible. Like, oh, did people really do this? And it seemed scary, and it was much safer to stay where I was. So I started noticing, like, kind of noticing those feelings. And it was kind of like, I like to think of it as like a niggling, like it wouldn't go away. It was just like, it kept showing up. And so that's when we feel like a soul calling, it doesn't go away. And it's going to continue to get louder and louder until we either say, yes, I'm going to go towards this, or we just say, like, I know this is something I want, and I'm not gonna do it. So it's like owning.
And
Like,
often when if you make that choice, for a lot of people, it can keep showing up as discomfort over and
yeah.
over.
And then it can like ripple into other areas of your life. And so I talked about contrast before. And so that's what started showing up. I was showing all these things of living in my city and working for my company. And it was like all these annoyances kind of started showing up. And then it was like I would get frustrated. And so I finally like claimed and said, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually what I want. And then when I finally like owned it and told my boss about it, she wasn't surprised at all. Like, they all knew.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how like others sometimes can see it, but we're trying to like toggle it and all make sense.
Yes.
So what I'm really hearing in that is, and also in the book, I call this how it starts as a soul awareness and a soul whisper. Into what you said, it can get louder and louder. And I think you described it as you can feel pissed off or an annoyance. For me, it felt like suffocating, like a brick on my chest. Like the more and more I felt like I was weighted down more and more and more. And that is such a place to be in, because we feel so weighted down and stuck, when what's so powerful is often a choice, and just putting something in motion immediately removes that weight.
Yeah.
Even if the unknown is scary AF, or you don't know how you're going to make money, if you're going to get clients, or or you're going to miss people, and can I move back? Like, at least this is for clients I've supported through these kind of transformations. And it sounds like for you and for me, yes, there are some different fears of the unknown. For me, the minute I made one of my big transformation points, like the weight that was holding me down was gone. It was like the freedom of well, now at least I'm going to finally uncover what I'm meant to become, was such a freedom.
Right.
It's so for you, that looked like a nomadic journey. So then did you like leave your job for a while and just start living in where'd you go live? How did you did you have money saved up? Did you start working remotely? What did that look like?
Yeah. So, and I think this is speaking to what you said, like the power of baby steps. Yeah. And so I had to kind of inch my way into it. I had never lived on my own before. And so knowing that I was going to be taking this leap, I got my own apartment for 3.5 months so that I could show myself, like, yeah, you can be on your own. And then I bought a one-way ticket to Australia, and I sold my furniture and sold like many of my belongings, and I committed. I had no plan really. I just knew I wanted to travel and follow curiosity. And I didn't have a lot of money saved. So I went from Australia, and then I bought a one-way ticket to Thailand. And when I was in Thailand, it was clear, like, oh, this is it. I'm living my dream. And so I knew I had a commitment back in the States. And so when I got back to the States, I sold my car, lived off of that money for a while. And then I cashed in my retirement, because I was like, I needed to buy myself some time, because I really didn't know who I was outside of that identity, that corporate identity. And I traveled, and it was such a beautiful lesson in trust, because for the first year of my travels, I only bought one-way tickets.
Wow.
And I would just show up in a place and be in the energy. And then somebody would say maybe another place to check out. And if it felt good and felt curious, then I would say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to try that. And I would book a ticket there.
Yep. And then ultimately now, where has that led you to now, and how you really, I know this has led you part in your journey, different ways you work with people and help people, and with Oracle cards. So where has that brought you to how you're helping people now?
Yeah, it's been really cool, because it all unfolded within my journey, and showing up inside of that. And then noticing, it's like when I finally like claimed it and started opening my awareness, then I started noticing the synchronicities and the signs, and the like, just tapping into my intuition more. And I would travel with my Oracle cards, and I'd be sitting in a cafe, and somebody would see me and they'd say, "Oh, what is that?" And then, or I'd meet travelers and they would ask like, "Can you pull a card for me?" And complete strangers, I didn't know their story or anything. And every time the message would be spot on. And so I started recognizing, oh, there's something here.
Mm.
And then there was a coach that I was in a program and she said to me, she was like, "You're very intuitive and you have this knowing." And nobody had ever said that to me. And I didn't know because it never felt safe to explore that part of me. And so it was kind of just organically kept unfolding, and then led to me really launching into my business more so that I can support people in owning their authenticity and receiving, like really stepping into and claiming what it is that they want.
Do you feel it's true? This is what I'm noticing. Tell me if you think this. I sense like this wouldn't be possible if you wouldn't have walked that journey. Like that few years where you were buying one-way tickets because you trusted your soul nudge, and like the trust that it must have taken to stay in that space without like the super clear plan of, well, how am I going to make money after this money runs out? Like that is a huge amount of trust. I mean, I feel like I hope you celebrated that about yourself, because that's like really going deep with knowing your feelings and trusting what's unfolding. And that's something that I think a lot of people desire toward, but they really struggle with.
Yeah.
So how has that prepared you? Or like now, what does this make possible that when you're sitting with someone in an oracle card reading, what's that experience like? Like, what can someone expect if they come, to help learn how to get insights from that?
Yeah. So I always say that oracle cards are a mirror reflecting back to us what we know inside. So it's a tool. It's not something that because I think a lot of times there can be these misconceptions around like, oh, this is giving us the answer and this is exactly what's going to happen. And sometimes that is the case. The messages unfold. And what I find is it's like we are the ultimate authority. And the oracle cards are really just like shining a flashlight into that depth within us and supporting us in receiving those answers. And so when somebody comes to me for a session, they're generally at a crossroads, or they have a decision to make, or I have even business owners will come to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm looking at 3 different offerings and I don't know which one to choose or which one will be." And with that, I always learn, and this is what like even buying one-way tickets taught me, is there's no right or wrong path. It's all like it's making a choice. And no matter what choice you make, it's even if it feels like, oh, maybe I should have made the other choice. It's still part of our journey, and it's still supporting us in getting per se, like getting to where we're going. And we don't
absolutely. Amazing. So you'll be joining us at the Unleashed Experience. By the way, we have some questions and we're going to get to those. And if anyone has more, get them in now because we have a few minutes left. So what can people expect? Because when they come with your ticket, it's included. Like you're going to meet these amazing experience providers, including Robin. So if someone wants to come meet you there, like what can they expect?
Yeah, I'm so excited. So I have multiple oracle decks that I have, and it's unique to each person. So I always tune in specific to the person and see what message wants to come forth. And I always invite people like, hey, if you have a question and there's something that you really are sitting with and you're like, I'm curious, like if I choose this route, what the possible outcome will be, or guidance. And sometimes people don't want to, especially when you're meeting someone new, it can be a little scary to ask your questions. So I'll just say, like, you can just simply say, like, what do I need to know right now? Or what message does the universe have for me? And it never fails every time when people are just like, just tell me what message the universe has for me. Then I'll pull the message. And then from there, they open up and they're like, oh,
that makes sense. Oh, and I think the reason for this, by the way, I just want to say this again, is because you're a clear vessel because of the work you've done in your own journey.
Yeah.
And maybe there's someone watching who's, resonate with that. I think that's just so, I know I work with so many entrepreneurs that healers, heart-centered, service providers, healers, we desire to get toward a thing or do a thing, but it's all about how we're being. And you've walked the walk, and now you're able to show up and hold this container judgment free, but like it's about the messages and intuition that come through. You are a facilitator in that, helping people connect with their own inner knowing.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing that this can help people come home to their wisdom so they can strengthen this for themselves. It's like we're all walking each other home to our inner truth.
Yeah. And I think even going back like full circle to honoring your energy and where you are, that when you do have, your work, your gifts, and trusting that. Because I had a friend reach out to me last week and she was like, oh, would you pull a card for me? And was sharing something with me. And she was like, oh, I feel selfish. Is this okay? Are you in a space to do this? Because I know your energy. And I said, I was like, no, it doesn't matter what I have going on in my personal world. I'm a conduit. And I can channel the messages no matter what. And I think that is the beauty in me, like really like claiming my magic, so to speak, in that way. And I think that really is what being unleashed is it's like, once you can claim that and own that, then you can really show up no matter what is going on in your world.
Yes, because you're not trying to hide behind it. You recognize what it is. And also you're still able to show up and like to support with others.
Right.
That's so huge. And I resonate with that so much because just so much. Yes. Okay. So let's answer this question. We have a few more minutes. Anyone else, drop your questions, bring them. There was a great one. And it was how do you know the difference between like vulnerability and being a martyr? Yeah. So, okay, let me think about that real quick. So I think, gosh, I don't mean to steal Brene Brown, but she said something about how vulnerability with, I think she might've said boundaries. And so martyr to me is like, kind of like falling on your own sword, right? Like or being a right fighter, I guess is how I'm going to interpret that. So this is my approach personally. I feel like if you're being vulnerable because it's an authentic experience, and everyone gets to choose what energy is right for them. For me, I'm not trying to come from I aimed at one of my guiding principles is judgment free of myself and others, and instead embracing curiosity. So I aim my vulnerability to be around teaching through my lived experience or opening up questions for us to ponder, not in a way because I'm trying to judge or call out. Maybe once in a while, there's like a belief I really see something in the world that I feel needs to be shifted. Because I feel that it's going to help people in their authentic power leadership journey. But I think that's the difference is like, are you being vulnerable because it's a share that can help people? Or are you being a right fighter and you're coming from energy of, well, I'm right and you're wrong. Yeah. Like, I don't know if you would just have a different distinction or what you would share about that, Robin.
Yeah, no, that feels aligned. And I mean, I was like, Brené's the queen of vulnerability. And so I look to her a lot for that. And I've learned a lot in that area. And I think I used to be a martyr. Like that was me. I walked that role for many, many years of my life. And that was honestly the breaking point for me, and actually having the courage to be vulnerable and step up into my journey, because I had this story that my family wouldn't be able to survive without me, which is it's pretty arrogant. And
I mean, hopefully they love you and they miss you, but like, you're not their whole world.
No. And my sister, like, she told me, she was like, I love having you around, but we don't need you. And it hurt in the moment to hear that. I was like, oh, they don't need me.
Because sometimes sometimes the truth pisses you off.
Yeah. And so I think sometimes we can look at like we're so worried about letting others down. And I think the cross between vulnerability and being a martyr can have blurred lines. But when we're standing in a space, like you said, in a space of integrity and authenticity and like really owning that, that commitment. And I love that you said like judgment free, and you view things as curiosity, because it's like when we're standing in that, then the other part, it's not going to, I don't know, it's not going to have
I just grabbed, I think that we came to collectively. I think it's if you're coming from love,
Yeah.
like self-love most of all, and love for like humanity. That's just I think that's a great simple takeaway for anyone with that. If you're thinking about sharing something, okay, if you can engage the energy of self-love and compassion for yourself and mankind, that's probably going to translate more authentically as vulnerability versus like the martyrdom thing.
Right.
Yeah. Ooh, look what we just came up with as a collective. We're going to turn that into a quote. Maybe that'll go in the next book.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything else, Robin, in terms of how I've got your links here of how people can connect with you? I know they can book individual or 3 or 5 pack sessions, and you have a course starting very soon. So tell us who might want to take that and what they'll get out of that.
Yeah. So if you're interested or curious in oracle cards, and you could be someone who somebody gifted you a deck and you have no idea what to do with it. I get a lot of students coming that way. Or you're somebody who you use oracle cards and you're still not sure. It's like, yeah, I pull them and the messages will like speak to me in the moment, but I don't really know other than that. So if you're really wanting to enhance and expand your practice, then this course will really dive into that. And at the cusp of all of it, it's just like bringing you back closer to yourself and allowing yourself to be seen in that light. And it's I love it. It's a fun, really fun space.
Will it be like a do-it-yourself, where there'll be chances to engage with you?
Yeah. So I lead the courses. So every week we have live calls. So you'll be in my energy. And then my favorite week is we practice pulling cards with each other. So that you can learn, because a lot of business owners will come to me and they've been pulling cards for themselves, and now they want to transition into pulling cards for their clients. And so it's a really cool space to be in.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining. I know you're going to be generously pulling a card for the Unleashed Experience a few days before the event. So people in our private group, I'll just drop that link. If you're coming to the event or you want to be more involved in the energy of this book, you are welcome to join our community online. Anything else in closing, Robin?
I think just like trust the energy, trust where you are, and know that if you have been feeling whatever the shifts, that I like to think of it as it's upgrading us all for like on a conscious level for what's next.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much for bringing your lightness and a bit more trust of our self-trust with our intuition. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I'll see you online again soon. All right, bye.